Welcome to Focus on Seniors, a television show sponsored by Helping Seniors of Brevard County, Florida. The show is designed to make you aware of senior issues, needs, and resources available to help us age in place and with dignity. This show will help you as you develop your own aging and care plan.
I'm Joe Steckler. Welcome to Focus on Seniors, the television arm of Helping Seniors of Brevard County, a show designed to provide you with information on how to develop your own aging and care plans. Our topic today is Medicaid planning. And with me in the studio is Bill Johnson, elder law attorney. And today I want you, our viewers, to pay close attention to what Bill is talking about, because I was recently privileged to sit in his office and watch him prepare a family for Medicaid planning. I learned a lot. I thought I knew a lot about Medicaid planning, but you always learn, Bill, when you talk to an expert.
True.
And so today, let's just start. You tell people what Medicaid planning is, but I also want you to start by differentiating between Medicaid and Medicare, because as much as we talk about it, people need to understand there is a real difference.
Yeah, Title 19 of the Social Security Act of 1965 is what created Medicare and Medicaid. It created other things, such as your retirement benefit and your disability benefit. Medicare is basically a program you pay into, and then you vest in it when you're 65. And that pays for a variety of different things. Medicare Part A pays for your hospitalization coverage. Medicare Part B pays for your physician coverage. And then there's now Medicare Part D, which is your prescription drug benefit.
Right.
So you have a lot of different plans working there, and then you can buy a variety of supplements that fill in a lot of the gaps in co-pays. Medicaid is a program basically designed for the poor. It is to be the safety net there. It has a means test. Usually we're looking at income and assets to see whether somebody qualifies for that. One big difference between the two programs is that Medicare does not pay for long-term care, okay? So if you have a long-term disease that requires care in a nursing home, assisted living facility, or even at home, there is no Medicare benefit for that. There is Medicare benefits for rehab, but not for long-term care. And Medicaid has some of those long-term care benefits. Of course, the best way, and we should probably start off the discussion, is long-term care insurance. You know, if you want to keep your options really open on where you're going to be and receiving care at home or assisted living or in a nursing home, long-term care insurance is probably one of the better ways to go about doing that. But the problem is most people don't get it. And there's a variety of reasons for that. They're in denial. They didn't think they're ever going to have a long-term care event. It's expensive. They think it's a bad investment. Or they can't qualify. They have a pre-existing condition that bars them from getting it.
Let's just talk about, when you mentioned they think it's too expensive.
Correct.
I went to, I gave a talk in Vero Beach recently, and a lady came up to me that was, I think she was either 82 or 84. And she had long-term health care insurance. And she didn't think she had enough. She took another small policy out. And then she took another one. She had 3 policies on long-term health care insurance. She had an income of around $1,700 a month and something like $17,000 in the bank in assets. That was all she had. Mm-hmm. Her home had declined in value by about 2/3.
Right.
And she wanted to, she asked me if she could get some of the money back. That she'd paid almost $17,000 in on her long-term care. I said, no, that's not refundable. It's like insurance money. You don't, it's not like a lifetime policy. You don't pay into it and accrue equity on it. It's something you pay for. It's like term insurance.
Correct.
And it kind of hurt her. She didn't understand that. But then she said, I've made myself insurance poor. I said, yes, you have. I said, I don't think you need all this insurance, but I said, no, we need to get somebody that can help you understand just what you need to do.
Well, when you're buying long-term care insurance, what you're doing is buying protection so you don't deplete your assets. And if you're starting out with low assets, there's really no sense in it all.
That's the point.
Correct.
Yeah. And we generally think of Medicaid as being for poor people, but one of the asset tests for income, let's say if it's a couple, it's roughly $25,000. They can, isn't it?
Well, if Medicaid consists of a lot of different programs, the two main ones that deal with long-term care are the institutional care program, and then there's another program called the nursing home diversion waiver that is in Florida that helps pay for services at home, in assisted living facility, and even at a nursing home. So you have two main programs. They both have the same income and asset test. The income test for a single person, we look only at the patient's income, is $2,094 a month of gross income. So don't use net numbers, use your gross income. If you're over that, we can still get you on Medicaid. There's a way to get around that test through the use of something called a qualified income trust, and that's a way we can reduce the patient's income. So when we look at income, we're not combining, if there's a spouse, the spouse and the husband and wife's income, we're not combining them. We're only looking at the patient's income. When it comes to assets, the patient can have $2,000 in assets. The spouse can have up to $113,640. That number, just like the income number, goes up typically each year. They don't count certain assets, like your house or your car. And it's important to note, in Florida, they cannot take your house. Doesn't count as an asset for qualification purposes, and Medicaid in Florida cannot put a lien on your house because of the Florida state constitution and its protections for homestead. There's a lot of misinformation out there about the nursing home's going to take your house or Medicaid's going to take your house. That doesn't happen in Florida. So many people
that have lived in certain times in our country don't want to accept Medicaid because they say they don't want a government handout.
Well, let's talk about, if somebody's in a nursing home on Medicaid, it's not a free ride. Basically, the patient's income is going to go to the nursing home. Medicaid will pay the difference. So it's not a free ride. The patient's income each month is basically going to go to the nursing home. There's a couple exceptions to that. They get to keep $35 for personal needs. They got to keep the cost of any health insurance on their health. And they get to, if there's a spouse at home who has a low income and what they call excess shelter costs associated with the dwelling, we may be able to divert some of the patient's income back to that spouse at home so we don't leave them destitute.
Right.
But for the most part, the patient's income goes to the nursing home and then Medicaid comes in and picks up the difference. Now, as we're mentioning, there's a lot of people out there who don't think, for a variety of reasons, they're eligible or would categorize themselves as poor. So let's backtrack and talk about what are the costs associated with long-term care. Both parties, we're in an election year here, are running on reducing Medicaid and Medicare costs. And let's just look at a nursing home. A nursing home gets paid three ways. They get paid by people out of pocket, they get paid by Medicare for rehab, and they get paid by Medicaid for the long-term stays. Now, if you reduce both Medicaid and Medicare, which has happened the last 2 years, the nursing home's got to do what to the private pay rate? Raise it to make up. So whereas if you had asked me about a year and a half ago, what does it cost, to be in a nursing home, I would have told you about $250 a day. If you had asked me 3 years ago, that was $200. If you ask me today, I would say we're going to be up at $300 within about 6 to 8 months. There are nursing homes here in Brevard County where we're at that are $350 a day. Now just do the math. Times that by 30 days and we're talking over $10,000 a month for nursing home care. There aren't many people who can keep that pace up.
And that's the Cadillac. That's the Cadillac of your nursing home. Well, it may not be.
I would not say it is.
Yeah. I agree with you. I spoke too quickly.
And then we'll go back. We had talked earlier in this show about long-term care insurance. It is not simply enough to think you have a long-term care policy and you're covered. You have to be aware of what your daily benefit rate is. So if you bought one like 20 years ago and it pays $100 a day, guess what? It's not going to cover the nursing home bill. If it only pays $200 a day, guess what? It's not going to cover the nursing home bill. And if you didn't get a cost of living rider or some other sort of a benefit that increases your payment.
I did that.
Right. And then usually that's the most expensive component of the long-term care policy. You may be behind the gun. So you may be paying on a policy that isn't even going to cover the nursing home bill.
I think my long-term health care cost right now is $4,200 a year. I get a bill, I pay that on an annual basis. And I think the coverage right now is $250 a day. So that's going to pay a great portion of it.
Correct.
And
it also pays for things other than a nursing home. If you wanted care at your house or in an assisted living facility, it would cover those things too,
Let's talk about that. And you have talked about it before in our shows, and I've talked about it on other shows with medical people. So many people get long-term health care and don't realize that they got a home care coverage. They can be paid for a couple of years of maybe daycare while they're still staying in their home. They go to a daycare, and at a daycare cost of roughly $1,000 a month as opposed to $7,000, $8,000, or $9,000 in a nursing home. And then it covers time in an assisted living facility, which is half the nursing home cost.
Right.
And then today, the assisted living facilities have so many different license classifications, they can almost do what they do in a nursing home.
Yes, if you look at it, assisted living, there are usually three main license types: standard, LNS, and ECC. Standard license is the lowest on the totem pole.
Right.
LNS means they can do limited nursing services, and then the ECC is the extended conjugate care, where they can almost do everything that they can do at a nursing home. So there are assisted living facilities where you can go all the way to the spectrum till the end of life. So with those different licensures, that really, a lot of your shopping when you're looking at assisted living facilities should be, how long am I going to be able to stay here? Because if you're needing assistance now, what if things got worse? Would you be able to stay there, or would they be simply asking you to leave and move to a nursing home?
Okay, we've talked about Medicaid, Medicare, we've talked about, do you think we've talked about the income and asset test enough? I think we have, or not, do we?
Well, just to reiterate.
Let's do this. I put in here, what is Medicaid planning? Okay, I'm going to walk into your office. And I'm going to sit across the table like this family sat across from you. I'm in your place. What do you do for Medicaid planning?
Well, first of all, I want you to bring in all your income and asset information. So we're going to know all about your pensions, dividends, interest, Social Security, whatever income you get and whatever nature it is. And then the first thing we're going to do is see where you are in relation to that income test. And if you're over that limit, then we know we have to do a qualified income trust. Okay? And so income's never a bar to getting Medicaid.
What is an qualified income trust?
It's a specialized trust we create, and each month when your income comes in, this trust has a bank account, and the amount you're over $2,094 at a minimum has to go into this trust account, and magically you're eligible for Medicaid.
But many people don't want to do that because they think they're cheating the government.
Well, qualified income trusts have been around for quite a while.
I know, but that money goes to help pay for the government.
Well, no, because remember, if you're in a nursing home, your income goes to the nursing home.
So
then we're writing a check out of that trust to the nursing home, and
it goes to pay the bill. So
yes, it doesn't just sit there.
It just doesn't sit there and accrue interest.
And the trust says if there is any money left in here when you die, it goes back to the state of Florida to reimburse them. So any money left in that trust would go to the state of Florida.
Okay, now.
So that is only used for income.
Okay.
On the asset side of things, I would want you to bring in every asset that your name appears on, whether jointly, individually, if it's an IRA or if it's in a trust, whatever it may be. And then what we do is we look at what assets are exempt. I talked the house, the car. You can have an irrevocable burial or funeral contract. You can have burial plots. There's a variety of different assets. So I look at all your assets. I find out what doesn't count. Then we look at what does count in relation to where you are. If we're only applying for you and you were a single person, the asset limit would be $2,000. If you had a spouse, we would look at their relation to the $113,640 in assets. And then if they're over that, that is where we have to do the planning part of it. And there are a variety of ways we can reduce your assets down or turn them into assets that don't count for Medicaid purposes. A good example, say I own a house and I'm applying for Medicaid, but I have a vacant lot in Marco Island, okay? That, it's worth $5,000, but that puts me over the $2,000 limit. Well, normally that would count as an asset to me. But under Medicaid rules, if I list that lot for sale, it no longer counts as an asset. Okay? So that is one simple way of turning an asset that counts into an asset that doesn't count. Of course, when it sells and turns into cash, that will count again. But that's just a quick example of knowing how the rules can affect whether assets count or don't count.
But I think a very, very important point to make, Bill, to our viewers is that everything we're talking about has been provided for under the law.
Correct. We're
not violating anything.
The Department of Children and Families publishes a rule book, the Medicaid manual. It's available online, and it tells you how to treat assets and whether or not they count this way or that way. And everything we submit to the Medicaid office gets reviewed thoroughly. And everything I'm talking about, we show them, okay? There's nothing we hide. We're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. And they get everything to see everything. Now, one thing people aren't aware of is that when you apply for Medicaid, they look back 5 years.
That's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, we didn't talk about the 5-year look back. So you simply can't give all your assets away, go broke, and then apply for Medicaid. So they have a 5-year look back. What does that mean? Well, they can go back 5 years and ask if you've given any money away, gifted. That can be simply giving cash away, giving an asset away, or even selling an asset for less than fair market value. I have a $25,000 car. I sell it to my son for $10,000. The difference, $15,000, is a gift. Mm-hmm. Then what they do is they add up the value of all those gifts and divide roughly by $7,400, and that is the number of months you're ineligible for getting Medicaid benefits from the date you apply. So say in the last 5 years I'd given away $74,000. Divide that by 7,400, boom, that's 10 months. So when I apply for Medicaid, I wouldn't be able to get any benefits for 10 months.
Now that's significant because...
Especially in these economic times.
Right.
Because parents and grandparents are helping out their kids a lot and making gifts. And if you don't have long-term care insurance that's going to cover your bill and you're thinking about getting qualified for Medicaid, a lot of these gifts can come back and really haunt you. And we're seeing more and more of these gifting issues when we do Medicaid applications. Now, there is a way to undo a gift, is have the person you gave it to give it back. And a lot of times that's easier said than done because they spend it.
I can think of a situation where you and I discussed with a family that same thing happened. But there's other things that the reasons why you go, or why we should go to a person such as yourself that understands all the ramifications of this. Just like you go, if you sell a house, you don't want to go to you to close the sale of the house. You want to go to a guy that does home closures.
It's like tax planning.
Yeah.
If you go to somebody and you ask them, do I pay taxes if I do it this way? And what are the taxes if I do it this way? And then you pick the way that you pay the least amount of taxes. And why? Because the person who you're asking knows the rules. It's plain and simple.
Another thing that came up, and one of the reasons that I'm concerned about this is because I happen to have had an annuity. I got out of the annuity, but this national company, the way they constructed that annuity was such that I got a tremendous insurance benefit while I had the annuity. But when I got out of the annuity, my broker was smart enough to know that if I kept part of that in force, I maintained the original annuity.
Yeah, the death benefit on it.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And I forgot what it's worth to me now, but I got to call my broker and find out what that is worth, because I just keep a minimal amount of money, roughly $5,000, in place in my estate to maintain that benefit in that annuity. Now, when another situation came up where a family was trying to qualify for Medicaid and they had an annuity, but there was something somehow, and I think you can explain it, where they couldn't sell that annuity or transfer it to a wife because the benefit was to the husband.
Well, there's so
many things to understand.
You really have to have a good, durable power of attorney. And on a previous show, we had talked about incapacity planning. The most important document when you're dealing with doing Medicaid planning for an individual is that somebody have a really good, durable power of attorney that allows us to do things like transfer ownership on annuities, change beneficiary designations, things like that. Because you can imagine if, say, I got a husband on Medicaid, okay? I need to go back and be able to change the beneficiary designation on the wife's life insurance. Because if she were to die first and leave all the money to him, I'd just be starting over again. Because he would be over the 2,000 limit. So, and if the wife had dementia or something like that, I would need somebody to have the power to change a beneficiary on a life insurance. A lot of durable powers of attorney don't give people that power. So it's very, one of the most important documents I need is a very strong, durable power of attorney. It gives a very broad grant of authority.
Okay. Now, in Medicaid planning, if dementia is involved and a person has Alzheimer's, how does that complicate the actual Medicaid planning?
Well, we need somebody who is their power of attorney, and if we don't have a power of attorney, we're probably going to need somebody to be appointed as a guardian.
So there might need to establish a guardian.
Correct.
And then there's another thing about when we talk about guardians, and we're going to have a show on guardians, but I think it's important for people to understand that you can do this family planning for this type of Medicaid planning. If you do it the right way and do it early on in the process, it can sometimes obviate the need to do more drastic guardianships and
correct
and a mess.
Yeah, and knowledge is power. I give seminars every month on this subject. There's a variety of other sources of information out there.
I'm going to go to one of those sometime.
Okay. I wrote a book on the subject that I give out, but there are a variety of sources out there about Medicaid. Now, there's also a lot of misinformation. I touched on one that, the nursing home or Medicaid is going to take your house. Not true. So there's a lot of misinformation. So when you go find somebody, you need to find somebody who's knowledgeable on the subject. Not everybody that you will talk to does have that kind of knowledge, including sometimes the people at the nursing home who are trying to assist families in putting these applications in. They may not have the knowledge that is needed to get an application approved.
Yeah, and something else that should be that our viewers should be aware of, Bill, that just because you have a person in a nursing home and you've been paying bills and the nursing home told you what you had to do about deposits and things, it's not always true. And I can remember a situation early in
Well, a good example. I had an associate attorney who was with one of my families at the nursing home, and he was standing right next to him as the person in admissions basically told my client that they had to sell their house to generate the money to pay the nursing home bill. Of course, he knew better, and he, as soon as they got out of the office, told them they needed to come and see me, because that is not true, and that's exactly right. But if they hadn't known better, they would have been selling the house and turned it into cash, which would have created a big cash problem when we went to try and apply for Medicaid.
What the example I was referring to was that I had a woman call me, and she explained what happened in this nursing home, and I said, no, that's not correct. And it took us 6 months, but there was $30,000 returned to the family because they were charging them the monthly fee when Medicaid should have been paying it, and they were making the family pay it.
Correct.
So they had to return all the money.
And, not to give nursing homes a bad name, there are a lot of great nursing homes out there.
Yes.
There are a few bad apples there that, I always those are my horror stories, but for the most part, the nursing home staffs are very good.
And they take care of people, they do their job. And I had, one of the shows we did was, we had the ladies on from a medical service, the health services director from the Wusthof system, and had the lady that's the marketing director for their town square assisted living facility. And they gave us some great information. And that's the purpose of these shows. The purpose of the show is to divulge information.
Right, and so educate the public.
Yeah, educate the public. And so if the public is not educated, we got a real problem. What do you think we have not covered? I'm looking at my notes here, and
Well, I think we're getting low on time, but of all the subjects that we talked about, as far as getting the income and asset qualification, there is also the nursing home diversion waiver program, which is meant to keep you out of the nursing home. And basically, since you're not in a nursing home, there are 5 ways medically you can qualify, which are based on your ability to do activities of daily living: walking, bathing, dressing, eating, toileting, and transferring. What they do is they send out a nurse that assesses your ability to do those. If you need some help with 5 or more of those, you're medically eligible. If you need some help with 4 or more, plus need supervision of medications, you're eligible. If you have a diagnosis of dementia and require some help with 3 or more, you're eligible. If you require total help with 2 or more, or if you have a chronic or degenerative condition requiring daily nursing services. That can be done through the CARES Unit, Department of Elder Affairs, and then that nursing home diversion waiver program can help with assistance at home or in an assisted living facility.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. I want to thank you today, viewer, for watching our episode of Focus on Seniors. If you have questions or comments, please call radio station WMEL 1300 at 321-631-1300. For more information on senior care and resources and what Bill and I have talked about today, visit our website, helpingseniorsofbrevardcounty.com, because this show will be on that channel. Thank you for watching.